Everyone came up with something? Did everyone? Yes, please. Energy, great. Yes, thank you. Yes.
I have a client who is a student, and I admire their spirit to fight, to do their best, to strive very strongly.
Yes, you get inspired from. It's inspiring. Yes, yes, please.
We spoke about courage.
Courage. Yes, and you get inspired. The gift you get is to be inspired by that. Yes, yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. This is. Do something? Yes.
I think that a lot of people who work with clients, they learn to be patient.
Yes.
Because they are patient with us.
Yes.
I think that they also teach us to observe people, to perceive them, and to try to understand them.
Yes. They're very people.
And we share this. They teach us.
Yes.
This.
People. They are patient with us too, with the workers. Yes. So, one staff person said they're forgiving. When we make a mistake, they unconditionally forgive us, right? So if we do something. And many people, maybe some of you said this, it's sometimes shy to say it in front of a big group, but many people say what they get from people is love, right? They get unconditional love, right? So this... I almost put my microphone down even. This is one of the most important things, is to look at what you believe. So as I've worked with many agencies and many staff in many different countries over more than 20 years, I have come to understand that people are successful. There's things you can do, but there's also a matter of what you believe. And this is one of the first things, to look at what you believe. It's a little test about to look at what you believe. Is, do you believe that community members would also benefit from those same gifts? So from what you get from knowing someone, do you believe that a community member would also benefit from receiving those same gifts from people? If you have that belief, you will be more successful in talking to a community member about the benefit of getting to know someone. So what's in it for the community member? What would be the benefit to community member? So it's really important to distinguish the gifts you receive from someone, and then to be able to talk with community members about those benefits, receiving those benefits from getting to know someone. Does that make sense? You understand that? So that's why it's important to distinguish that. So I had a project in the state of Kentucky with 13 different agencies. We worked together over a year. So this takes a long time. It takes a long time to work on relationships. So I've had projects over 1 year or 2 years or 3 years working with different organizations. And in the state of Kentucky, at the end of the year, we had a celebration event. And the people brought stories about the community members who had befriended people. So the community members who had gotten to know someone and what it is they had to say about getting to know someone. And these are some of the statements from people. Was, she taught me a different kind of love. I look forward to a lifetime of being her friend. I would miss spending time with Wayne if he did not come to visit. He lifts me up and makes my day. It's people like Stephen who make the world a better place. It's a true blessing to get to know him. It's life-giving for both of us. And one of the program directors said, witnessing other people getting to know the people we support and befriending them is the best thing in our profession. Okay. I'm going to tell you some stories about people today, give you some examples. Some of the people may have a more severe disability, and some of them may have a more mild disability, and some of them may be in situations that are different than where you work. But the important thing is to understand the strategies. So to understand the strategies about people. This is Klaus, who doesn't walk, and he has very little language. And he had lived in an institution, and he had been there for about 40 years. And he came out and was living in a community home. And the staff who supported him wanted him to have a more social life. One of the ways we look at how to meet people is through our interests. So probably a lot of your friends you met through your things you are interested in. And because Klaus had lived in an institution for a long time, the staff felt he might not know what his interests were. So they had to explore different interests. A couple of the staff really liked to play pool, so they took him to a bar. Or you call them pubs or bars? Same. All right, they took him to a bar where they played pool. And they found out a few things about Klaus that night. One of the things they found out was that even though Klaus's language is very hard to understand, they found out that he could get whiskey Coke across to the bartender really well. The other thing they found out was that he got everyone in the whole bar involved in their game that night. Some laughing. Especially this table of 3 women who was next to them. And when they left that night, the bartender said to the 2 women who had brought him, the bartender said to the women, they said, "When are you bringing him back?" Everyone who was here tonight had a better time because he was here. So what community members receive as a contribution, we don't know until we try things. This is Vicky, who lives in a small town. So who comes from outside Prague? Who comes from outside of Prague? Just a few people? Oh, many of you. All right, good. So in small towns, who comes from a small town? A small town. Okay, good. Good. What's small, right? Vicky lived in a small town, and she had a very bad reputation. She, as being difficult. She worked in a sheltered workshop and was a very good worker, but the workshop was not helping her move to more supported or competitive employment because she got into a lot of fights, especially with the men in the sheltered workshop. And the workshop said she needed to learn to manage her behavior better before they would help her get a job. And she lived in her own apartment, and she would call up the landlord every day and complain about him coming to fix something in her apartment. She had grown up on a farm, and there were stories of her strangling cats and other things on the farm. And the story was that her parents had brought her to the agency and turned her over and said, well, good luck. So she was in our very first project. And one of the things that I learned in our very first project was that if you or another staff professional, if you're going to help someone have community friends, it makes a difference if you like the client. Because the staff person who worked with Vicky, her name was Danielle, she did not particularly like Vicky. She was very resigned about her. So we would have in our project, our first project about friends, we had lunch meetings once a month to brainstorm ideas and to try out different things, to learn about what kinds of things could we try and what things worked. And Danielle would come to these meetings and say, how can I ever find a friend for Vicky? I'm never going to find a friend for her. She has too many behavior problems. She was very resigned. But we just kept encouraging her. So one of the things that happened was that there was a special dance coming up. And Danielle, at the time, had a foreign exchange student from Argentina staying with her. And she said, I got the crazy idea to ask Pablo if he would take Vicky to the dance. And I was sure he would say no. And I was sure it would be a problem, but I asked him anyway. So she asked Pablo to take Vicky to the dance, and he said, sure, no problema. And then Danielle came to our next friends meeting that we had, and she said, I learned something really important. I learned that it never hurts to ask. And this is one of the most important lessons that I can tell you today, and I learned from Danielle, is it never hurts to ask. And I know it takes something to ask. It takes something to ask, yes. But we have to have the courage to ask. And I learned this, as I said, from Danielle. And this afternoon we'll talk more about asking and what do you ask for it. And I know it's, as I said, I know it's hard to ask, but it's really one of the most important things. Because the community members don't know unless we talk with them. They don't know unless we talk with them and ask them. So Pablo took Vicky to the dance, and she was very excited. The staff had never known her to wear a dress before. She had also never worn pantyhose. When you take out pantyhose, if you're a man, you may not know they're very small, yes? Vicky was getting ready for the dance. She called up Danielle and said, I don't think these are going to fit me, right? So she was very excited. She had the handsomest date at the dance. All the other women wanted to dance with Pablo. So Vicky was very thrilled. And after the dance, she had Pablo over to her house for dinner. Okay. This is a former, one thing that happened, it's right. I'll skip that thing. This is a former teacher of Vicky's who had been living in Austria for a while, and she came home for a visit, and there was an open house party for her, and Vicky was invited to come to the party. And Vicky also hates to spend money. She complains anytime she has to spend money. But she went out on her own and bought the teacher a present. She bought her a nightlight. Nightlight with a stained glass panel in front of it. And after the party, the teacher wrote her a note and said, thank you for the beautiful gift. Every time I look at it, I think of you. And again, Vicky was very thrilled. And then, this is Danielle, a woman, Danielle, on the right. So on the right is the staff person. So Danielle just kept asking people. So in the small town, she kept asking people, who do you know who might be a good friend for Vicky? Who do you know who's someone who might like her? Vicky could sew very well, and she said, like, who is someone she could sew with? Until someone suggested Muffy, who's here on the left. And Muffy, it turned out that Muffy and Danielle had gone to school together. And Danielle said, oh, I never thought of her. But she talked to Muffy about getting to know getting to know Vicky. And it was very important to distinguish between a volunteer and a friend. Yes, so volunteers are very important, but it's different to ask someone to get to know someone to maybe become their friend. It's different. And because Muffy said, I'm not going to promise to see her once a week. or anything like that. She said, but if I'm at home and I'm sewing, she could come and sew with me, or she could help me watch the children. And Vicky likes little children, so that was how their relationship started. They lived not very far away from each other. They would walk to the grocery store together. At one time we asked Muffy, what did she get from knowing Vicky? And Muffy said, I just really like her. I think she's really funny, right? So she really enjoyed spending time with her. We had a craft fair, a county craft fair, and Muffy suggested that Vicky submit her pillow to the craft fair, and she took it down for her to submit it on the day that it had to be put in to the craft fair. So Vicky had had a lot of behavior programs about being appropriate, yes? And about 4 months after these pictures were taken, about 4 months later, the staff found they could stop doing all the behavior programs about Vicky being appropriate, that they could stop doing that. And then, And then about a year and a half after these pictures were taken, about a year and a half later, I was talking at a conference, and Danielle, let me go back to the other slide. And Danielle was at the conference, and she came up to me at the end of my talk, and she was going on and on about Vicky. And every sentence she would end with, oh, but Vicky's doing so great. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, but Vicky's doing so great. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, but Vicky's, blah, 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 in Czech, right? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, but Vicky's doing so great. Every sentence. I could hardly shut her up. But I said, Danielle, what happened to you? Because Danielle had lost a lot of weight, and she looked really great. I said, what happened to you? And she said, Danielle and Vicky were in the same Weight Watchers group together, and that Vicky had lost 30 pounds. And I said, is she still seeing Muffy? She said, oh yes. Muffy and Vicky and Danielle were all in a Catholic women's group together. And Vicky thought it was really great to be in the same group with Danielle and with Muffy. And also that summer, Vicky had never gone on a boat, and Muffy took her out on a boat. It was a speed boat. Danielle sounded jealous, but it was the first time that Vicky had ever gone out on a boat in her life. Muffy had taken her out. And the thing that really surprised me was the difference in Danielle. Yes, from being so resigned about Vicky to being so proud of her. But when you work on what's really important to people, when you work on the thing that's really the most important to people, people change. And so, after she lost all of her weight, she got a new coat. And the agency director told us a story. The agency office was on the main street in town. And it turned out that he said that Vicky used to come into the office and want to hang around and talk. He said, until you had to say, well, sorry, Vicky, I have work to do. And he said after she got her new coat, she came in really proud of herself, like anyone would be who had lost that much weight. And he said she was like, well, you're a busy person, and I'm a busy person, and well, bye. She was the first person, we have this movement in the States about people buying their own homes. I know it's not as big here, but this was the little house that she bought. And one of the things I want to say about it is that she had her doubts about it, like it was a big thing. But Muffy really encouraged her. I want to tell you, Muffy really encouraged her. She also has her own cat now, the woman with the story about strangling cats in the past, right? So, but I want to, one part of this part of the story is that because it's a small town, everyone in town knew about everyone else's business. And they heard about this woman with handicaps buying her own house. And they were talking against it. Like, what are we doing with our government money, right? And, but it turned out that Muffy and her husband knew a lot of people in town, and they really stood up for Vicky. And they told other people why it was good for Vicky, and why it was good for the town, why it was good for the economy. And so they like really stood up for her. And then it turned out that Danielle, her staff person, left the agency and started her own company. It was a company called For Supported Living. And Vicky came as her first client. So Vicky came with her as her first client. And then Danielle helped Vicky get a job. I don't know if you probably don't have this company here, Petco. You have Petco is big. You have other American companies, but Petco is this really big animal store, right? Like a really big pet store. And so Danielle helped Vicky get a job working at this big pet store. So, where did you meet your friends? The people who are your friends. Where did you meet your friends? School? I actually could tell that was school. All right, school, thank you. And where else? Job. And your job, yes. And classes, someone said classes, okay. And the bar? The pub, right?
Interest groups,
Okay.
interest activities.
And what kind of interests, their activities? Dancing, thank you. Horses, yes, okay. Two things I like too. Okay, dancing and horses, okay. And anyone else, where did you meet your friends?
Let's go to Scout.
Scouts, okay, yes, thank you. In sports, okay, thank you. In your neighborhood, okay. All right. So, and the cinema. So, is that a club or just at the movies? You must. And all right. So. And in the bar. So the two things you said first were the things everyone says, no matter what country, what age. People say school and your job, right? School and work. Excuse me. And then people say interests and in the neighborhood, and some people admit to the bar, meeting people in the bar. So if we think about where everyone makes friends, especially the first two things, is there's some common characteristics about those places, which is that you see the same people in the same place over time. It's very rare that you meet someone once and become a friend. It does happen, but it's very rare that that happens, mostly from school and work and our interest clubs and the bar, that we see the same people in the same place, or sometimes people say church also, so that you see the same people in the same place over time, yes? And but the second characteristic is it's not just the same person in the post office or the clerk in the grocery store. Those places of school, work, and the interest groups and the scouts and things like that, and even the neighbors, there's some basis for connecting. There's some basis for getting to know one another. People are doing things together where you get to know each other, yes? So when you think about where to connect someone with a disability, it's important to look at that. Where are they going to see the same people in the same place over time where they can have something meaningful to connect with? So there's one major shift in our thinking that has really made a difference with people having more community friends. One shift in thinking is to shift from thinking about activities to people. So I know there's probably many clients who have activities in the community where they go shopping, or they go to restaurants, or they go to movies, or they do things. But the question is to shift our thinking to, but who are they going to get to know there? Who are they going to get to know there? Okay? So that's if we just shift our thinking about that, that's something that's made a difference for many, many organizations, is to shift from places or activities in the community to thinking about people and who are they going to get to know. I'll give you an example. If someone says someone is interested in music, the staff would say, like, oh, let's go to a concert. But who are you going to get to know at a concert? You don't get to know many people at a concert, yes? So if someone had an interest in music, where are the places, what places can you think of where people would see the same people in the same place over time? What are places here in the Czech Republic where if someone had an interest in music, they would? A choir, yes, a choir, like a community choir, a church choir, yes. A band. Okay. Any place else?
Music school.
A music school, okay, yes.
Na koncertech nějaký kapely.
A certain band that gives concerts.
Okay.
Repeatedly.
Okay.
Popular among some people. Who
Okay, good.
Keep going.
Keep going. Where you see the same people? A fan club. A fan club. Yeah. Right. Okay. Good. All right. So there might be like. Go ahead.
Chtěla jsem říct, že třeba tady je ta situace na krytých seminářích.
Yeah, and do ordinary community members come to the workshops? Okay, all right. You could start organizing workshops for interest, yes. So, all right. So does everyone understand the shift to think about people? Yes. So where you're going to see regulars, but also where can they do things with one another? Like there might be an orchestra, like in a university or a secondary school, or for example. So that's to like shift our thinking. Oh, thank you. To shift our thinking from activities to who is the person going to get to know. I don't think you become friends with everyone from school, and you don't become friends with everyone from your job. Yes, you don't become friends with everyone. So when you want to get to know someone better, when you want to become friends with someone from school or work or a club, or what is it that you do? What do you do when you want to get to know someone better? Asking. You ask people, yes? What do you ask people to do? What do you ask people to do? Interested about you, something. So when you want to get to know someone better, or invite. Invite is a good word too. Invite is okay. So you invite someone. Let's say you invite someone to. What kinds of things do people do here when you want to get to know someone better? What do you invite them to do? Go to a bar. This is the most open place about going to bars I've ever talked. So, all right. What else? What else do you invite people to do? Share lunch, thank you. Go for a walk, okay.
Those who smoke, they can share a cigarette.
So share a cigarette, go out and smoke.
They get into a talk.
Yes, right. Right. Learn about one another. Okay, good. So when I made the point earlier about that social isolation is likely to kill you, as smoking is, the smokers say, oh, but you smoke with your friends. so anyway, so the point is, when you want to get to know someone better, you invite them, you ask them, right? So inviting is natural. It's natural and common when we want to get to know someone. So it's an easy thing. We all have done that. So one of the ways we connect with people is through our interests. Like you gave examples about dancing or horses or scouts or sports. So we connect with people through our interests. And interests are the things that we find most meaningful. When you identify someone's interest, you can think about, where do we find someone who shares those interests? Where would we find someone? Like if you had an interest, where would you find other people who share those interests? You can find memberships and associations, clubs around any kind of interest. There's memberships and associations around any kind of interest. They may not be easy to define. Sometimes you have to try them out, like the example I gave you with Klaus, and they tried out the pool, playing pool at a bar. You have to try things out sometimes. And they express the person's calling. Is this a good word in Czech? Calling, what you're called to do, what your calling is. I give you an example from a workshop a sheltered workshop in Kentucky. They were committed to, God, excuse me. They were committed to find everyone a connection in community life. I had my voice up for too long, so I have something. So thank you. They were committed to find everyone a place in community life where they could belong, a place of belonging and membership with a community group or place. And one of the people that they supported, her name was Eva, and Eva was very challenging. She had a very severe level of intellectual disability. She only talked very little, and she was not interested in very many things. She wasn't interested in working, she wasn't interested in, except sometimes she liked to wash dishes a little bit. But they kept asking the question, what is Eva's calling? what is Eva called to do? And they finally figured out that Eva had two callings, was to drink coffee and to smoke cigarettes. This was Eva's calling. So they looked and they found near them, they found near where Eva lived, they found a little local cafe, a diner that was called Frida's Diner. And they found out that every afternoon there was a group of women that got together there to smoke cigarettes and to drink coffee, right? So every afternoon. And so they talked with Frida and the other women about bringing Eva there. And so they started coming there. Now, they had a very interesting approach, which I usually do with a demonstration, and I'm thinking about how to do this. So let's do it with the people who speak English. Okay, make it easy on me. So would you, let's see. Any other older woman who speaks English? Who's older? Are you older than her? Yeah. You speak English? Well, then, yeah, you do. Come on. Okay, good. And you speak English too, right? So, all right, good. So, all right, just stand up here. So, just a little demonstration, and then you can translate into Czech, so you don't have to worry about you telling me things in Czech. Okay. And then, so let's pretend that this is Eva.
I'm Eva.
Eva, okay, all right. And this is like Frida. Okay. Okay, good. And then you pretend you be a woman, okay? So this is like all the women in the coffee group. Okay? Okay, all the women in the coffee group. Okay, good. So now sometimes also Eva had temper tantrums also. Temper tantrums? Acting out, like being upset, throwing things. What are you? Temper tantrums? So if I'm the staff person and I take Eva and I bring Eva to the diner, where is my attention? What is my attention on? Attention.
I'm the owner of the
What's my attention on?
Yeah, I'm the owner?
Yeah, you're the owner, and this is Eva, and I'm the staff person, and I brought Eva to Frida's Diner. Where's my attention? Where's my focus? It's not that hard. How they? Okay. All right. Good. All right. Anyone else? Where's my focus?
Maybe introduce me, no?
Okay. Introduced you. Okay. You want to be introduced, Eva? All right. Good.
To me, no?
All right. Good. All right. Good. Now, if I'm the worker, my attention's on Eva, right? And then having Eva. How do I have Eva come this way? Yes. How do I have Eva include this way, right? But this organization, they had a different focus. So they had a very different focus, which was they focused on Frida, right? So, and how can I help Frida come this way, right? How can I help Frida and the other women in the coffee group? How can I help them come this way toward Eva? How could I help them see Eva and understand Eva? But also, who are the ladies in the group? But that means I have to know Frida, right? I have to talk with Frida, find out what's important to Frida and the other ladies in terms of helping them see Eva. So is that clear? Understand? So, and that's very different, isn't it? That's a very different focus for people who work with people. So it's to help the community members see the person and become acquainted with the person and what's important to her and things like that. So it also means I have to get to know the other ladies, right? We have this word schmooze. Sorry. Talk with, chat with the other ladies, be social with the other ladies, and so to help them include Eva as part of the group, right? Now, sometimes at the place, Eva had a temper tantrum. Sometimes Eva had a temper tantrum. So, and what would I normally do if Eva had a temper tantrum, if I was the worker, what would I normally do?
Calm her down.
Calm her down. Okay, what else would I do?
Explain what's happening
Exp-
and excuse, make an excuse.
And make an excuse for her. Okay, good. All right. So sometimes, depending on what she's doing also, I might just take her, might just leave. Yes, might just leave with her. So depending. But they had a very different focus again. So if Eva was having a temper tantrum, what they would do is they would ask Frida, why do you think Eva is doing that? And usually Frida had a whole different perspective or a whole different view about it. She saw Eva in a very different way than the social services person does, right? She saw her in a very different way. So sometimes people, I'm going to be telling you a couple of stories about people with some very severe disabilities. Sometimes people think, oh, they should go out with a community member and not have a staff person. But I think there's some people, they do need a staff person to come with the community member. It's not just, oh, they should, and there's some people, they're fine just with the community members, and some people need the staff help. So the staff person came with Eva for 2 years. Actually, for 2 years she came to the coffee group. And then Frida started to say, I think it's time for Eva to start coming on her own now. Frida said, I think she trusts us now. And then they actually went every afternoon for 7 years until Frida closed the place. She went every afternoon. And then after the diner closed, then Frida continued to see Eva. They continued to get together after that. So thank you very much. So there's people's interests, and then there's people's gifts. And they say there's 2 kinds of gifts. And one thing is it takes something to see someone's gifts. So what kind of glasses you have on affects what it is that you see. So if we just look at somebody's disability, that's all we see is their disability, what they can't do. But we can put on the glasses of seeing what people's capabilities are and what kind of gifts they have. So I say there's 2 kinds of gifts. One is what does the person do well? What are their talents and abilities? And the second kind of gift is what do others receive from knowing them? Okay, so like we talked about what we get from knowing someone. Okay, and then identifying gifts, what can be contributed to others that can lead to community connections. So these are another couple of examples. Again, I'm sorry, her coloring is really off, but this is Mitzi. She lives in a town in Minnesota that's named after Ulm, Germany. So it's called New Ulm. And so it's a very German town. They have a lot of German restaurants. They have a glockenspiel in the main part of town. They play papa music down the main street of town 365 days a year. Papa music, German music, papa. That's what we call it in the States. What do you call it? So, every day of the year, they play it on loudspeakers down the main street of town. And they have a big Oktoberfest celebration. They have a big heritage festival in the summer. And they bring papa bands over from Germany for this big festival in the summertime. So this is the town where Mitzi lives. It's a small town. And she doesn't walk, and she talks only a little bit. She says 5 things. She says hi. She says, Anya means I love you. Any staff person she calls Olga. She says, oh, get out of here. And she can tell people when she needs to use the bathroom. So she only says those 5 things. So when people were looking at how to have Mitzi have more friends, there were people at the agency who said, how can Mitzi be anyone's friend? She doesn't really talk, and she doesn't really interact with people. How can she be someone's friend? But there were other people who looked at, what does Mitzi have to offer? What are her gifts? And she has a beautiful smile. She tends to cry really easily. They thought of her as being really emotional, and that she has a great big heart, and that she has a lot of love to offer people. And they looked at where could they find people to receive all the love that Mitzi has to offer. So she also likes children. And they had the idea of her being, this is a program, it's called Big Sisters, Little Sisters. It's like Big Brothers, Little Brothers. Do you know this program? No? It's where an adult gets matched up with a young person. Okay, it's like a mentor and a friend as a role model. So a Big Sister, Little Sister program. And so they had the idea about her being a big sister. And they went to the organization which ran this program. It's called PRO. And they helped Mitzi apply to be a big sister. And the board of PRO went through something about deciding to accept Mitzi's application or not. But they did decide to accept it. So they went to a PRO meeting where there was a lot of little girls there, and they wanted to see if any of them would respond to Mitzi. And the day that they got there, she was kind of tired, and she started to cry. And as soon as she started to cry, these 2 little girls came over to comfort her. And they said, oh, it's okay. And they were making vase planters that day. They started to make a little vase on her wheelchair tray, and a craft. They started to make a craft on her tray.
What do you mean by craft?
A vase. Making a vase. Making something. Okay. 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 And they played a little card game with her. And one of the girls drew this picture of Mitzi. Oh, it's really hard to see. This is blue with a black line across it. This is a river with a bridge. I thought it was a spaceship for a long time. So this is, it's cut off a little bit here on the right, but the staff person put this picture in the notes, and this is what she said. She said, this is a picture of how kids view their world. She said, I think if we had asked an adult to draw a picture of Mitzi, the adult would start by drawing a wheelchair and trying to fit Mitzi into it. How does a child start? The world is the most important. The wheelchair is minuscule, tiny, when you get the proper perspective. She said, I think kids have that perspective. So they matched Mitzi up with the other girl whose name is Crystal. And Crystal and Mitzi would get together about once a week or so, and they would go swimming together. And she was in Scouts. She had a ceremony when she went from one part of Scouts to another part of Scouts, and she invited Mitzi to come, and she pushed her wheelchair everywhere and introduced her to her family and friends. And then this is the big festival in July, the Heritage Festival, and they were in the parade representing Pro. And Crystal pushed Mitzi's wheelchair in the parade. And on her 9th birthday, they went to the Burger King. I know you know Burger King. So they went to the Burger King for her birthday. When they came into the Burger King, Mitzi pushed the wheelchair over next to a table of boys. And as soon as she did that, the boys got up and left. And Crystal looked right at Mitzi, and she said, it's their loss. And then she said it was her best birthday, and the best present she had was going out to supper with Mitzi. And they also got together in September, they got together with Deb, was Mitzi's main staff person. And Crystal asked Mitzi if she thought she was too young to have a boyfriend. And Deb wrote in the notes about their visit afterward, she wrote, I questioned Mitzi's judgment when Mitzi agreed it was okay. But Crystal assured her she was not kissing him because that is college stuff, university stuff. So she said now she and her boyfriend just talk about special things. So they decorated Mitzi's house for holidays, and they exchanged Christmas gifts and birthday gifts. And they had known each other for a year, and they were having lunch with Deb again. And Crystal asked Deb if Mitzi was handicapped. And Deb said she was surprised because they had known each other for a year. And she said, why do you ask? And Crystal said, because my friends are telling me that she is handicapped and I need to know. So Deb explained that Mitzi can't walk and things like that are her handicap. At the end of 2 years, Mitzi had an agreement for 2 years to be a big sister. at the end of the 2 years, Crystal's mother asked that their relationship continue. When Crystal was 14 years old, they came to talk at a conference. So they came and talked at a conference with people about their friendship. And Crystal said that being friends with Mitzi was one of the best things that had ever happened to her in her life. She said and one of the most important things that had ever happened to her in her life. She said, she's handicapped, but who cares? And she said, now all of her friends want to have a friend who is handicapped. And there were people at the conference, people like you, people asked Crystal questions. And somebody asked Crystal about what advice did she have for other people who wanted to help people have friends. So what advice did she have as a friend to help other people? And she said, that's all you have to do is tell people to reach out. That's all they have to do. And then she said, if they're not the kind of person who reaches out, well, that's another thing. They continued to be friends. She's now in her late 20s. And she was getting married, and it was important to her to have Mitzi be part of her wedding in some way. And so she had her manage, with the staff's help, she had her manage the sign-in book where the guests signed in, right? So she had her do that. So I think I'll come back to this story after lunch. So what I wanted to do, because I wanted people to leave with some specific ideas. And it makes a difference if you work who like works directly with clients? Who you'd like directly work with clients? So. Okay, good, most people. Okay. If you don't, who's here? You're the only person from your organization. You're the only person from your organization who's here? Just one, just a couple. Oh, I have to wait for the translation. Sorry, yes, right, okay, all right. That's fine. If you want to share ideas with someone else, that's fine, or you can work by yourself. If you're here with someone else from your organization, you can sit with them and work together. So we are going to be working on some exercises, okay, during the day.